Today's business schools are facing major shifts, whether in technology, student expectations, or global competition. In this talk, Professor Dr. Ralf Dillerup, Dean of Heilbronn University Graduate School, examines how such changes are reshaping the future of business education. He explores the impact of aging populations, the rise of Generation Z, as well as the growing role of AI. He also highlights the importance of global collaboration and strategic adaptation.
I would like to start, for all those people coming from Germany but being here from Hong Kong, talking about what's Germany and what's Heilbronn, and there are some similarities. So this is Germany. We are the southwest state. You might know the Black Forest. You might know some of our great companies in the region. This is where we come from. So the southern part of Germany is the economic powerhouse, and I just did some comparison. So the state of Baden-Württemberg and Hong Kong are in some sense quite comparable. We are in the heart of this region, but you probably might not know many of key employers around, because we are a region where we have great brands, but we also have a lot of world market leaders which are leading the world market, as the word already states, but they are not that familiar. Most of them are in the industrial B2B business, and most of them are family businesses. You might recognize some of the logos here, but most of these logos are probably not known. But nevertheless, if you are, let's say, in the ventilation business, moving air around, 98% of the world market share is produced in the region. But of course, nobody really cares and nobody really knows about those companies. And if you look at the map, this red centered area, these are the world market leaders, and this is our region. So you see a lot of world market leaders in our region. Some of them are called hidden champions, because obviously you don't know the brand, but this is our global perspective, and this makes us quite unique. So there is some research done on this. Where are these hidden champions? Where are the highest density of world market leaders? And we are proudly to be in that region where there's the highest density. And this also makes Germany quite unique. This also makes us, as a business school, of course, we need to serve these. So therefore, we need to have a global reach. So what is HKS? Of course, we embrace the world, hugging the world, but we are first of all part of the Heilbronn University, which is a university of applied science. We are focusing on business, engineering, and informatics. In our current situation, there are more people loving to study business than engineering and informatics, unfortunately, because we definitely need this mix to serve our region. We are in our school, at the business school, a big part of the university. The key word was also impacting the regions, and this is obviously also our mission. It's not only to provide degrees, to prepare talent, but it's also to impact the region. And this is what we strive for, to play an active role and to take over one role in the development also of the region. So we wouldn't like to have our region in the next years being as hungry as might be necessary in Hong Kong. I think we are facing somehow comparable challenges, and therefore we need to play an active role in that one. So what makes us quite unique? We believe in quality in education. We are not mass producers, we are quality producers, and therefore we are very much focused on rankings, on accreditations. We are very much focused on the links to industry. So University of Applied Science, I think this is the DNA, and therefore we are very much focusing on this topic. And as also mentioned, our region is very international, world market leaders, so we also need to be open to the world and understand the world. This is why we come here and bring students to see the world, to get a different perspective, and also strongly encourage them to study abroad, but also welcome students from Hong Kong and other places to come to Germany. We are located on our campus, Bildungscampus, campus of education. which is for German dimensions a pretty big campus, a pretty new campus. If we look at the facilities, we can be proud of having these facilities, but it's not only the facility. You see here an aerial view. It's also a big experiment, which is also pushing us ahead and trying to avoid that we are not hungry enough, because we have a lot of competitors, or friendly competitors, or sometimes less friendly competitors on the campus, where we need to compete and where we need to see that there is an entire ecosystem. And we are playing one role. As a University of Applied Science, we also have universities focusing on research. We have all kind of institutions. So you see the logos here. So we have one role, and this keeps us hopefully awake or hungry to move ahead in this direct competition on the same campus. If I come closer to our topic, what's the future of the business school? I would like to look into some developments. Therefore, as a professor of strategy, I need to define what strategy is. Defining the future, shaping, really actively influencing the future is difficult, as we are living in very uncertain times. But nevertheless, if we see our today's position, we can be guaranteed that we need to change, because the future will be different in many ways. And therefore, I'd like to highlight a couple of topics leading us into the hopefully desired dark blue world here, because we need to prepare not for any future, we need to prepare for a specific future which is hopefully beneficial for us. Second theory chart, and then the theory lecture is over. Look into the industry of business schools. And using the Michael Porter's 5 forces, the industry of business schools is influenced by the light blue environment, all those global trends, which we cannot influence as a business school. One is, for example, demographics, the aging society. And this will definitely influence our business school world, and this will later on influence the industry. So we are a bit earlier in this process, but this is one key driver. Then, of course, there are some other factors influencing the industry attractiveness. And if we look into Europe, I just returned 2 weeks ago from a conference of European business schools. To summarize, the industry attractiveness is going down. There are overcapacities. There are universities closing down. They're cutting massively in quantity. So it's not a super attractive industry right now in Europe. Nevertheless, we are in this industry and we need to survive. We need to have answers on these challenges. And therefore, I'd like to talk first about the big elephant in the room, which is the demographic change. So the aging society. This is Germany. We see the population as it developed in the past years, and we see also a forecast for the next years. And if you see the numbers, 84 million people living in Germany in total, and the forecast is going down to 74 million, including migration in this forecast. So definitely we are living in a shrinking society, an aging society. So Germany will become smaller. As mentioned, migration is a big discussion point in Germany. So we are talking about 100,000, and we are seeing the overall problem sized around 10 million. This problem cannot be solved by migration. So we need to accept that there is a shrinking and aging society in Germany. And as mentioned, looking into the numbers, it's exactly the same situation in Hong Kong. Maybe even worse. If we look at birth rates, Hong Kong and Macau seem to have the lowest numbers here. So we are sitting in the same boat in this aging society issue. To size this means we need to accept the future will bring us minus 15% in population. And if we go a little bit more in detail into the student population, it's even worse. But we are definitely having this long-term forecast, and as a business school, we definitely need to accept that this is our future. If we look at the home market, if we look to the rest of the world, we see this is a problem we have in some countries, like North America, like most countries in Europe. But if we look, for example, on Africa, it's exactly the other way around. I think the answer is quite obvious. So if we just focus on our home market, we need to accept that it's shrinking, or we need to see that there is an international dimension and we need to become an international school. Also, if we look into our degrees, using some strategic concepts, we can see a life cycle here, telling us clearly that we are in a maturity phase. If we look at our bachelor degrees, and also if we look at the master degrees. Master degrees is a bit better, but nevertheless, in the bachelors, we are already in Germany clearly on the decline. And if we look at the strategic impact, the message is, this is a time to consolidate. This is not a time to grow, and the competition will increase. And this is actually what we experience right now. So 2 weeks ago, the first private university in Germany closed the activity and is bankrupt. So we are in this life cycle situation already. And if we look a little bit on some positive aspects, business is clearly the number one subject. So if we ask potential students, and if we ask those students who are already enrolled, we see the largest topic is business. So for every president, the message is the business school should be the largest school, right? Then we come to informatics and then all other disciplines, but business is definitely good. So therefore, for the future of a business school, this is a positive message. And also, if we look into the share of academic education, so in Germany we also have other ways for education, vocational based, but we can see since years that more and more young people attend the university, but we have reached a new plateau. Obviously, there's no big increase to be expected. So if we look at our home market, we looked at different sectors. Here we can also see the old research-based universities, mainly focusing on producing academic impact. They are still number one. But if we look into detail into those numbers, universities of applied science are clearly number two. And in business education, it's 2/3 in University of Applied Science, because obviously business is not a topic which has that many students at old universities. All right, so if we look at our market, we also said maybe the future is international students. If we look so far on the business school demography, we can see there are international students, but the numbers are pretty low. So we are not a country with a lot of international students coming to us. And number one is India, number two is China. And then we see a big jump to other countries. So these are our two existing countries, but we learned China is having a little bit the same demography issue. So probably India is the hope, or Middle East, focusing on the international market. To sum up, we definitely need to change. If we see the demography, I think the responsibility of business school leaders is clearly to look ahead. And if we expect minus 15%, we need to change on this topic. So if we look into the future, definitely there is an urge to develop. If we look on one other factor in our 5 forces model, so what is the change of our potential customers? And now we are aging the generation Z. So those students who will join us in the next years, and they will be different. Whether this is good or bad is another question, but they will be different and we need to react on that one. So first of all, we can see here demography. So currently enrolled are the Gen Z students. So those who are sitting here probably feel that you are in this generation. And we can clearly see the numbers are declining. So first of all, the next generation which will join us in the next years at business schools will be a smaller population. And if we look into detail into the numbers in Germany, there will be a small peak, those who are currently aged 6 to 13, but nevertheless, the numbers are clearly lower than we've seen before. So for the next 6 years, we clearly can expect not a growing demand, but a clearly shrinking demand, and then there will be a short peak before it will decline again. If we look at some of their ideas, we can clearly see that business is not the top priority. So to do business is only ranked number 5. Climate change, sustainability is clearly number 1. And therefore, if we are in a business school, this is bad news for us, because obviously we need to somehow attract for business. But this is the same thing for companies. So the Gen Z will need to be motivated and be inspired for business. And if we ask them for their preferences, some statistics tell us the most important topic is private life. And then we come to how this can be financed. If we compare Germany, we very often have a saying in Germany, we work to live. Whereas, for example, in France, people live to work. So it's a different priority. But definitely we can see Gen Z will have this different priority. So business, working is not a top priority. Work-life balance is a big word here, which we look into those topics. So they are working to finance their life. There's also statistic on this one, so they strongly agree on this point. If we look at some other very important topic is Gen Z is the social media generation. So I'm an old gray person, so I'm maybe not that much into social media, but if we need to address our future target group, we will need to use TikTok and social media. And this also means the attention span is seconds. It's not a 90-minute lecture time frame. So definitely this will be completely different in terms of how to consume media, how to create knowledge. Good news for business schools, for universities at all, Gen Z loves to study. So higher education is a top priority. In comparison to the generations before, it's getting a higher priority, so more and more would like to study. Maybe less to learn about business, maybe more to develop as a person, but higher education will become more and more attractive. Okay, so these are just a few topics, but if we look at our potential customers, they will be different, there will be less, so we need to change as well. So we definitely have at least two factors driving the future into a different direction. And now coming to technology, AI will definitely change our business. So the role of AI or technology will probably disrupt. Currently, we are in a phase where we are doing our best as a university to find solutions to the answers. But definitely the way we teach, the way we deliver, the way we examine will be completely different. Of course, students expect us to be familiar with all those new AI tools, but sometimes I've got the impression that the students are more familiar than the faculty with all the AI technologies, so we are maybe in this race a bit behind sometimes, but definitely we need to integrate this. Therefore, this also is a huge topic from a governmental side. So the European Union setting legislations, and if I go back in the year 2004, there was a big disruption. Till then, every state in Europe had its own system. So in Germany, we had diplomas, and a diploma in another country was something completely different. Everything was standardized into a framework. We call this the Bologna process because the treaty was signed in Bologna in Italy, which is now in a more standardized way. 2024, the European Union released a new act, and this is the act of merging into university alliances. So the idea is not that every university will fight for its own, but we will see university alliances focusing on some topics, which means we have currently only 64 alliances out of roughly 3,600 universities in Europe. And the European dream is we will have ecosystems of universities competing against each other, no longer single universities. And we are honored to be in one of those university alliances. And this is the University Alliance, which will be the role model on how to apply AI in universities, which is called EU on Air, AI responsible. In this alliance, we've got partners from all over Europe, funded by the European Union, to become a role model how to cope with the technology shock, and later on transfer this know-how to other institutions. And some idea of what it's all about. So first of all, we see that learning will be completely different. If we have AI, we can have more personalized learning. So it's less a classroom experience, It's more a one-to-one personalized experience, and therefore we can use AI. We can have AI tutors. So in future, students will not see me live anymore. They will see me in a virtual room. And then there is an avatar, a 3D avatar who is looking like me, behaving like me, talking like me, but in every language, in proper English, for example. And there's a one-to-one tutorship possible, which is amazing because this is working 24/7 instead of me, and I'm less efficient. But this will bring us into a complete new dimension if we definitely use AI. These are just some examples. But this is an outlay of the topic. So one was the setup with the work packages where we are focusing on research, education, and also in the center we have this know-how transfer also to industry and to the society. And if you like this a little bit more fancy, we asked AI, this is the paperwork we had, transfer this into a poster, this is the outcome. This is what AI can do. And I think definitely this will change the world, and we need to be active in this change fast enough to cope with the technology change, and we believe we cannot do this by ourselves. It's better to work in an alliance. The 3 changes which I highlighted, just to summarize, the future will be different than today. So we need to change, and there are some other factors which I will not tackle now, but there are overcapacities in the industry and so on. And in order to survive and to have an active role, we definitely need to change as a business school. So how to change? This is not an AI-created poster, but a poster which was discussed in ASCSB, which is the international accreditation body, where we see a little bit the journey. So number 1 here, if we go back into the future, we had a very practical approach in teaching. Then we moved very much into theory, and I think in many cases, many universities are still there, producing a lot of papers, or maybe producing a lot of paperwork which is not relevant for the business, maybe just relevant for other academics. So this was more paper-producing machine, very much theory-based, leading us into phase number 3, where we are reaching the 21st century, where we are in the last years, which currently means the return on a good education might get less because the theoretic education is not really bringing value, at least for industry. So therefore, we also seen a lot of online platforms. So Coursera is offering a lot of learning experiences. Some students obviously use more assistance in videos, so how to do this. They trust in Wikipedia or sometimes more than in professors. So this means the value of education is getting less. And that's why we are currently in this massive wing, coming back to more relevance, and our keyword now is impact. So we need to impact industry, we need to impact the society, and we really need to make a difference. And also this means we need to co-create with the industry some content. And I think as a University of Applied Science, this is our time, instead of the time of the, let's say, old research universities. So if we are in this trend, we can already see a little bit where the future will be, and I will give you just some insights. What is discussed in the business school community? What are the future drivers? And I just took here some slides from ASCSB. We see this as the international standard. So this is the world standard, and there the best business schools in the world meet and discuss how will we develop the future. We see some charts here. So the future will change into a completely new environment, and therefore universities need to change as well. Which means quality will be the key driver. If it's low quality, you probably will lose relevance. So we need to be high quality provider, but not only for degrees, but also impacting industry and society. So the role of a business school is a driver in the ecosystem. So maybe the future of Hong Kong needs to be driven by the universities. Not only creating talent, but also transferring the knowledge. And this is the key vision behind. And there are also some statistics that this works. So if we are looking into the ASCSB database, we can see 73% of the CEOs in the Fortune 100 are from ASESB universities, and this is only 1.5% of all business schools. So 1.5% of all business schools create 73% of the future leaders of the big companies. 75 in the Standard & Poor's 500 are from accredited schools. Again, 1.5% of the schools produce 75% of the future leaders. I think this is a clear statement that quality on this standard works. You can also see the unemployment rate of graduates is not a big issue. So here 96% of all graduates find a job. We know statistics that there are sometimes, for example, in the UK, we've got more than 40% unemployment rate of graduates. In Germany, we are super blessed right now. Our unemployment rate is 0 for graduates in our statistics. So therefore, here this also shows us that this is more or less the right way. We can see there are also impacts on the faculty. So what does this mean for faculty? We need to make sure that there is students come to see good faculty, otherwise they prefer looking YouTube videos and so on. So therefore, we need to have updated and always on the point prepared faculty. There's also a key definition here is we are not only caring about business, so it's about responsible leadership. Here I just used the chart of the principles of responsible management education. We as a school are also committed to PRIME, and this means we need to create education with a purpose. It needs to be value-based and reflecting. Critical thinking is, for example, one of the biggest concerns. This means something on teaching, research, partnership, but also practice and sharing to the community, though this is the impacting topic. So this is a little bit the template we see for the business school of the future. If I would like to visualize this, it's a little bit this one. We definitely need to redefine leadership. We need to redefine business schools with many of those keywords I already mentioned. And this is probably the picture how the future might look like. And this brings me to the end of the presentation. I could also talk about our strategy, but maybe it's good to end right here with the outlook of a business school in general, because we are still on the way. Of course, we are not there yet. We see that the world is changing very fast. Maybe the biggest challenge is also, as we heard earlier, to be hungry and to have a crisis awareness. I personally believe in Germany we haven't fully understood that there's a need to change, but I think the facts and figures are quite obvious. But nevertheless, there is a resistance to change and not a full acceptance that we need to prepare for a different future. Thank you.